Some houses hold memories. Others hold something else. In 1977, a modest council home in Enfield, North London, became the epicenter of one of the most disturbing and controversial hauntings in modern history. By 1977, though, things were very different. Single mother Peggy Hodgson raised 4 children there on her own, 2 boys and 2 girls. She and her son David went to investigate and found Janet in the hallway, rocking and groaning. He walked up to find Janet sitting calmly on the landing. But one thing is for sure, something sinister was loose within those 4 walls. Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, check out more content. See you next time. And it didn't leave. In 2003, a man came forward claiming to be the son of Bill Wilkins, the spirit who spoke through Janet. He confirmed every detail the voice had described, even things no child could possibly know. Still, skeptics say it was all an elaborate hoax. In reality, the ghost of Bill Wilkins may have been Peggy Hodgson herself. Some believe she created the whole thing as a way to escape her boring life, even going as far as feigning possession in her own daughter. But if that was true, why put herself and her children through such danger? Scratches and bruises, flying furniture, regular illnesses, even death. There has never been a convincing explanation for the haunting of Enfield. And many locals claim the area is haunted to this day. Is it true? That's for you to decide. But if you visit the house, don't knock on the door. In 1977, a modest council home in Enfield, North London, became the epicenter of one of the most disturbing and controversial hauntings in modern history. What happened inside 284 Green Street would terrify an entire nation. And to this day, no one can fully explain it. The ghost watched him. "Who are you?" the investigator asked. "My name is Bill," came the reply, "and I am dead." Peggy and her children were driven to a nearby church to pray, hoping to repel the ghost. Instead, the ghost followed them. A crucifix in Janet's hand bent at a 90-degree angle. Once, a priest attempted to bless the house. As he held the crucifix aloft, it was flung from his hands and smashed. Later, he found the pieces in the garden. No one could enter the house while Janet was there. They would feel sick and faint, like they were being stabbed with needles. When they did enter, they found objects overturned and scratches on the walls, especially in the bathroom. There, they also found a pentagram drawn in lipstick. Was the ghost demonic? Had it chosen Janet to be its vessel? After 2 months, the Society for Psychical Research packed up and left, defeated. But others stayed behind, and whatever they found in the house shocked them. Morris Gross, famous for investigating other poltergeists, spent 18 months documenting more than 600 psychic events. He watched the ghost move objects, even shake the house itself. He also learned that the ghost liked sweets. He left chocolates and other treats on a table, and the next morning they were gone. Despite the terrifying activity, no one dared stay the night in the house. No one except Janet. One night, the haunting stopped. Just as suddenly as it started. Gross had been cataloging everything in the house. And when he came back the next morning, all his notes were ripped to shreds. He found Janet sitting on the stairs, calmly reading a comic. But when she saw him, she screamed and ran upstairs. Later, she admitted she had written the diary entries herself. But when Gross checked, her handwriting was identical to the ghost's writing. After 3 years, Peggy and her kids were moved to a new home, but the ghost followed them. One night, it shook the house and cried, "Get out, get out. We want our house back." Back in the house, the ghost was less active, but it never left. One night, Gross heard the unmistakable sound of Bill choking. He rushed into the bedroom to see Janet turning purple in the face. He performed mouth-to-nose resuscitation, and she was fine. But he knew she had died. In shock, he staggered outside. It was daylight. He had been up all night. He felt awful. But Janet was alive, yet no one could explain how she survived. Maybe the ghost saved her. Maybe it was her whole ordeal. But as Gross stood there, stunned, Janet appeared in the window and waved. Somehow, she was already dead. She was fine. But no one could explain how she survived. Maybe the ghost saved her. Maybe it was her whole ordeal. But as Gross stood there, stunned, Janet appeared in the window and waved. Her eyes were blank, and she looked entranced. As David touched her shoulder, she seemed to come to and cried out, "Don't touch me. Don't touch me." She then revealed that the voice had spoken to her again, this time saying, "You must let me out. You must let me out." Soon, the haunting escalated further still. Janet began to speak in a deep, guttural voice. Not her own. The voice claimed to be a man named Bill Wilkins, who had died in the house years before. He told Peggy he had lived in the house in the late 1960s. He had had a hemorrhage and died on a chair in the corner downstairs. "Just before I died, I went blind. Then I had a hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died on a chair in the corner downstairs." He would speak for hours, and always with Janet's lips barely moving. The voice would sometimes whisper, sometimes scream. It talked about how it wanted to speak to someone, to tell them something important. Peggy, desperate to help her daughter, allowed the ghost to speak through her. One night, the ghost said, "Tell my wife and kids I love them." Peggy did as she was told. But as soon as she repeated the message, the ghost started screaming, "Liar, liar, she doesn't love me. She never loved me." Then the violence began. Witnesses saw Janet levitate up and down the stairs. She would vanish from sight, only to be found standing in a completely different room. She resisted violently when touched, biting and scratching anyone who tried to hold her. Furniture flew through the air, smashing against the walls. Heavy wardrobes slid across the room. Books tumbled down the stairs. Doors burst off their hinges. And somehow, despite being a small child, Janet was at the center of it all. She was found in locked rooms. When people entered, they felt icy fingers rake across their necks. They heard footsteps behind them, but when they turned, no one was there. An investigator once sat in a chair. He felt it tilt as if someone sat down. He turned, saw nothing, but knocked over a full glass of water. Once, Janet was found levitating above her bed, suspended in mid-air. Another time, she was found jammed in the corner of a room, unable to move, screaming, "Help me, help me." She would sometimes seem normal. Then suddenly, without warning, the room would grow freezing cold. Her breathing would become heavy, and her eyes would roll back in her head. The voice would begin to speak, and whatever it said, Janet would repeat. "I am Bill. I have been dead a long time. You are my saviors. I want to go out. Please help me. I can't get out." The first investigation, with the media now heavily involved, skepticism grew. People claimed it was all a hoax, clever children playing tricks. But if that was true, why couldn't they replicate the phenomena? Why did tape recorders melt when set up in the house? Why did toys fly across rooms and flower pots crash through windows? Why were witnesses consistently pushed, shoved, and bitten when trying to approach Janet? Who was this ghost, and how was it possessing a little girl? Desperate for answers, Peggy contacted the Society for Psychical Research. Investigators stayed in the house for months and recorded hundreds of strange events. Despite netting many skeptics, believers argued the house was haunted by the ghost of Bill Wilkins, the man who died in the house in the late 1960s. But if so, why did the haunting start after all that time? And why did the ghost seemingly choose 11-year-old Janet to speak through? Or was there something else going on? Aged between 11 and 18, as far as neighbors knew, they were a normal family living a normal life. But behind closed doors, sinister things were happening. It began one night with knocking. innocent enough. Strange thuds in the night, like footsteps or fists striking the walls. Peggy, exhausted after a long day of work, thought it was just the house settling. It didn't stop, so she investigated. There was nothing there. She dismissed it until Janet, her 11-year-old daughter, screamed one night that her bed was moving, not shaking but sliding, across the room, on its own. The next night, the drawers opened by themselves. A heavy chest of drawers moved as if pushed by invisible hands resisting Peggy's attempts to push it back. She called the police, but instead of finding pranksters or burglars, an officer reportedly saw a chair lift off the ground and slide several feet across the floor. Within days, the news spread, and soon the local police force were stretched to their limits, not dealing with criminals, but with ghostly goings-on. And no one had an answer. What happened inside 284 Green Street would terrify an entire nation. And to this day, no one can fully explain it. In the early 1970s, the house at 284 Green Street was a normal working-class family home. Peggy noticed strange cold spots around the house, disembodied whispers and books flying off shelves. Then things escalated. One day, Peggy heard chains dragging metal moans. As the weeks passed, strange things continued to happen. One night, an investigator heard a door slam upstairs. The aftermath. To this day, no one knows what happened in that house on Green Street. What do you think?